This is just the beginning. That's the world that we live in. Let me help you believe in what we can do when we stand united. We are one with the world. We can make
everyone. We'll just wait a couple minutes while more folks join.
A change. It's our life. We can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light. Oh, let's shine our light. We won't listen to what they're saying. We know it's just love that we're giving to this place that we call our home. We can't change what's been done, but it's still our run. We are one with the world. We can make a brighter tomorrow. Together make a change. It's our life. We can't step back from what we know is right. So let's shine our light.
Welcome, everyone. We may wait just another minute while everyone joins. In the meantime, would love for you to please put into the chat your name, your organization, your location, and what brought you into this session.
Catalyzing Change Week 2024 is building the social innovation sector from the 6th to the 10th of May. Players at the social innovation sector, from knowledgeable academics paving new paths to government champions igniting policy shifts, have curated over 100 sessions, hosted
I think we're running into some internet bandwidth issues. Don't know if others are experiencing that as well. Okay, great. Yep. Eva, are you with us, and is your internet working okay? All right, well, let's get started. So hopefully you can see that video on other sessions that you join. Really excited to have you all here. Please, if you're just joining us, please put into the chat your name, your organization, your location, and what brought you to the session. We'd love to know who is in the room. And it's wonderful for us to be here. Thank you to the whole Catalyst 2030 team for coordinating an inspiring week of events. We're really happy to be a part of it. So I am going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about who we are, and we'll get started. So let me first introduce us. So my name is Shelley Hoy. I'm the Senior Director for the Belfer Center for Innovation and Social Impact at the 92nd Street Y. I've had the privilege of leading our new initiative, Share Our America, as we've developed it over the last 2 years. And I am joined today by two wonderful colleagues, Janelle Hill and Kenny Andajeski, who have been instrumental in the development of Share Our America over the last years and serve as trainers and coaches for our work, and you'll have a chance to hear from them shortly. First, I'm going to orient you to who we are, So 92NY is a community and cultural center that is deeply rooted in our home in New York City, founded over 150 years ago. And today, 92NY sees thousands of people come through our doors in person each day, and tens of millions join online every year. And the Belfer Center has been around for about a decade and serves as 92NY's innovation engine, building and scaling initiatives that enable change leaders to activate ripples of impact in their communities. We're best known for founding GivingTuesday, and through all of our work, we partner and collaborate closely with experts in the space that we work to really maximize the collective impact that we can have together. So these are some of the initiatives that we've launched in close coordination with many, many other wonderful organizations and groups. So for the last 2 years, we've been building Share Our America, which is an initiative that serves leaders like ours and helps them use dialogue as a tool to bridge the divides and disconnection in their communities. And through our work, we serve these leaders, mostly in the United States right now, as they seek to reduce the division, disconnection, and polarization that makes its way into all of our spaces, especially our organizations and our community spaces in the US. So first, we equip leaders with skills, tools, and resources for how to do this. 2, we support them as they put that learning into practice and facilitate dialogue for the first time, bringing people who are very different in conversation together. And then 3, we work with them to activate and sustain local impact, whatever that means to them. So as they look to co-create community solutions in the direction that their communities need, because every context is different, every community is different. And over the last 2 years, we've supported schools, Rotary clubs, law enforcement, city governments, faith communities. The sessions lead to greater understanding, a greater feeling of trust and respect. And we've seen these leaders start to use that foundation as a catalyst to make change in their local communities in a way that best serves everyone in their community. So we work with them to try and get a representative set of folks in the room. And this work, of course, is challenging in the United States right now. We have issues of political division that intersect with issues of faith and race, mental health, social isolation. It's very interrelated, and especially at a local level. And collaboration can be incredibly challenging, especially when it comes to how do we create the solutions that our community needs? Because when our communities are made up of people who are very different from each other, and when those people don't have all of the skills to communicate across those divisions, collaboration can be incredibly challenging. And so conversations are often stuck in freeze mode. They're stuck in fight or flight mode. And organizations and leaders really feel this acutely. And organizations and community leaders and organizational leaders are in positions to help and create spaces where everyone can thrive. And so at the end of the day, through all of our work, we want to ensure that our organizations and communities have the ability to strengthen their bonds, to embrace their differences as a strength, and work toward more resilient, inclusive, and connected communities. With that, I am very pleased to pass the mic to my co-presenters. They will take you through the rest of the session. They'll share more about what the work looks like, give you an opportunity to reflect on how this shows up in your life, and give you an opportunity to meet each other in breakouts. So please prepare to engage. We will be sending you into a breakout so you'll get a chance to network and meet other folks. So first up is Kenny. So Kenny, over to you.
Thank you, Shelly. Hey, everyone. Kenny Andajeski, as Shelly introduced already, I'm calling in from Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is just north of Atlanta and south of Nashville for anyone whose U.S. geography is more vague. And even our American folks who don't know where Chattanooga is. I've played a role in expanding our work in Tennessee over the last couple of years, and as a facilitator and coach, and I'm helping to build out our dialogue models and help to implement it in more communities. And I just want to provide a brief overview of what dialogue consists of. A Share America dialogue would typically take 2 to 3 hours, and we only have about 50 minutes today. So this is going to be more of a brief introduction or teaser than a full experience, and I just want to acknowledge that up front. But to kind of get us in the right mindset, I actually have a few reflection prompts that I want us to take 15 to 20 to 30 seconds each sitting with. And the first prompt is really to what extent do you feel that the challenges and opportunities in your community are being discussed by stakeholders who occupy different, even conflicting perspectives? So I want to give you 20 to 30 seconds to really sit with that question. Now, a second prompt to build off of that, to the extent that those conversations are even happening, to what extent are those conversations potentially stuck in a repetitive and often unhelpful dynamic? And you can maybe even think of the examples of those dynamics, the conversations that you witness or that you participate in, and the people that are going to say the same thing that they've said before, or the perspectives that won't even get surfaced. And then finally, to what extent do you feel that people, including yourself even, need to shift their attitudes or the scripts, the perspectives they share and how they share them, and behaviors towards engaging with each other across differences? Could that potentially unlock something? Could that create new possibilities or dynamics in your community that have not previously existed? If you had responses to all those questions, maybe Share America is right for you. But those are the kind of the frames that we think about, and when we're developing this approach that we're taking, we're trying to crack the nut or solve for that problem that we see existing on the locals. We see it existing on the global scale for sure amongst political leaders and nations and even politicians within countries, but on the local scale as well. Thank you for writing in the chat, Nima. If anyone else wants to share what they reflected on, we would love to see it. And before we get into our breakouts together, the few things that I wanted to introduce to give you some more language for what might be happening in your communities is we really think about this concept of stuck conversations. And that's in relation to the relationships, the dialogue and conversations and the stories that we tell. I think there's people in our lives or even ourselves where we have to tell our story over and over and over again, and it might feel like it falls on deaf ears, or we might find ourselves unwilling to listen to someone sharing a perspective that is different than our own. And that's something that we really focus on, just like how do we move these stuck conversations? And two ways that we think about that are within these cycles. And there's images that exist, but we just wanted to talk through them with you today. But one is a defensive cycle and one is a constructive cycle. When we think of a defensive cycle, it's this psychological trigger that essentially happens in us where we either attack or we are attacked by someone, where we might criticize them for a viewpoint, or they might tell us that we're wrong in the way that we understand or feel or believe something should happen. And that can trigger a defensiveness, and that defensiveness triggers a response. And that response results in more of an ingrained behavior around vigilance. And then that can quickly become a cycle where the next time that dynamic emerges, you're vigilant and you're like, I have to protect myself, or I have to, like, fight or flight needs to kick in. And that's the only way that I can engage with this person. Like, I need to know whether or not I need to be dominant or I need to be protective of myself in this conversation. And that's I think a dynamic that we see play out online, offline, locally, nationally, abroad. Something that we focus on to kind of mediate for that is a constructive cycle. And that's really focusing on the process of listening, reflecting, responding, asking, listening, reflecting, responding, asking. It requires us to be in a place of abundance and to have a certain psychological security that we don't feel like we are, where it's a life and death situation for us. We need to provide those environments where people are safe and protected to have these conversations. But being in that cycle allows us to discover new possibilities or seek deeper understanding of people that we are in community with, that we have to find some level of codependence or understanding in order to realize the mutually beneficial outcomes for the communities that we're in together. So I'm going to pass it off to Janelle now, but essentially we want to Share America is an opportunity to try communicating ourselves in different, more effective ways. And that's using dialogue structures that Janelle is going to introduce us to. But these structures can foster self-awareness, shift mindsets and behaviors, and create these new possibilities for understanding each other. So you're going to get an opportunity to sample that, to taste it with us today. And with that, I'll pass it off to Janelle.
Thanks, Kenny. Just as Kenny said, there are different structures that we've put in place to make sure that these conversations that we are having are different and not stuck in this cycle of unproductive speaking. So 3 things that we do at Share America that we've have been developed in collaboration with Essential Partners, which is a decades-old research-backed organization that's been doing this work, are communication agreements, time speaking, and to reflect, write, and respond, as Kenny touched on. The communication agreements that we put in place allow for at least established temporary norms in a group where we're together and we're choosing to agree to these things in a way of engaging that interrupt our cycle of quick paced talking, responding without thinking about what we're saying, and having a posture of openness and empathy as we engage with each other. Some of those communication agreements that we use are to speak for yourself and allow others to speak for themselves with no pressure to represent or explain a whole group, which can happen a lot, I know, in my circles. To check assumptions out by asking questions. And we really encourage people to ask questions of curiosity, which is like, oh, what made you think that? Instead of, well, why do you think that? We usually frame questions up with a what and an openness to avoid interrupting, which goes into the time speaking. And to like pass or pass for now. So like if you're not ready to engage, there's no pressure to speak, although we do really encourage people to speak, and to maintain confidentiality. So really want people to take the learnings and not the stories. So those things kind of set up a container, and that we're all saying we agree to these ways of being with each other during the time that we're together. The time speaking, which is number 2, as we send you off into breakout rooms, I'll go over how you're going to engage when you're in the breakout rooms. But the time speaking allows for like us to share equity of this space. So if I only have a minute to speak and you have a minute to speak, then it allows us to be concise in what we're saying and to make sure that we're on an equal playing ground or playing field. And then to reflect, write, and respond. This is really important because we're going to ask you to hold your questions, whatever things are coming up for you, the kind of butterflies that you may feel in your stomach as somebody says something that you may agree or disagree, or that you may just want to say, oh yeah, I've had that same experience too. To hold those things to the end, to think of, is this something that I really need to bring into this space? Do I want to reframe this question differently? Even for myself, I've found as I've dived deeper into this model that even in writing texts to friends, sometimes I have to reframe a question because I might say, well, why this? And then I'm like, well, is that going to get the answer that I really want? Is that going to allow this person to open up more? Is it going to put them on the defense? And we really want people to open up more. And as we ask questions of curiosity, it allows for that openness and for that softness to take place, which will help to interrupt the cycles that we've seen, even if we are on different sides of an issue or we have different opinions about something, we can still engage in a way that is open and develop a kind of a softness of heart as we engage with each other using these kind of structures. Now I'm going to get ready to send you guys into breakout rooms, which Kenny is setting up. The instructions for the breakout rooms are to please choose one volunteer to keep time. So we're putting some of this responsibility on you guys. There will be a timer up at the in your breakout rooms that you can see. You can use your timer on your phone. Everybody's going to have a minute first to reflect on this prompt, which is going to be, who is a courageous person, past or present, who has deeply informed the way that you live your life. So once we go into the breakout rooms, you'll have a minute to do that. And then the person who's a volunteer to keep time will allow each person to speak for a minute. So each person shares their responses for a minute. And while others are speaking, please practice active listening. So like I said, paying attention to what's happening in your body as you hear them speak, and staying in with kind of an open mind of curiosity about what they're saying, writing down any questions that may pop up for you. When you hear the person's timer go off, or when the person who is keeping time indicates that your time is coming to a close, please finish your sentence and not your paragraph. So this may feel like you're being rushed through, but please try to stick to that as much as you can. Like I said, it allows for equity of our time to be spent, and then for us to be able to come back together and like ask questions of each other. Once everyone is shared, we want you to open up for dialogue, which is one of the most lovely parts of this, because no one has interrupted each other. You really get to dig in and ask the questions that are most important. So is there something that someone said that you're curious about or would like to understand better, that you may have thought you understood, but you're like, did I hear this correctly? Can you speak to this a little bit more? It allows us to dive deeper and feel more closely connected and bonded with people who were otherwise strangers. And you may find that as people answer this question of a courageous person, someone who you may be in a breakout room with that you may have felt, oh, I'm not going to have anything in common with them, you'll realize that there is some overlap, or you may realize that there's some overlap, or you may feel that softness in you be cultivated, which is really what we're trying to do here together. That is all. Now we're going to get ready to send you off. Think about if you want to be the person who is the time speaker, please get ready to do that as we send you off into the space. And make sure that you dig in with questions of curiosity after everyone has shared in your breakout room. And then me and Kenny also will be popping around in your groups. Please don't let us interrupt you, or don't feel like you have to put on in any way. We just want to see the beauty that's happening in the spaces here in the Zoom room.
Before we send you to breakouts, does anyone have any questions around what we will be doing for the next 20 minutes?
Yes, I have a question about that, because I'm jumping in right now. I didn't catch up with what we are doing in breakout room.
We'll jump in the room with you, and we'll update you on it. We'll work with your group to make sure that you are caught up.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, we will send you all to breakouts now. And if you don't know what's going on, we will be there shortly to help get things started. See you all soon.
I always feel like people are being sucked back in here so aggressively, even if you knew that the time was running out. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah, that was brutal.
I'm noticing some dispositions though. I feel like I'm seeing some facial expressions where there might have been some good conversations as we would hope. So it's great to have you all back.
Yeah,
That was beautiful.
Right. It was beautiful to pop around and to bear witness to some of your stories. As you guys are back in this space, I just want to take 30 seconds for you to hold what just happened. to notice what's happening in your body. And as we go into a time of reflection in this space together, just to take a breath. We would love a couple of volunteers to speak into the space. What shifts, if any, have you experienced as a result of being in that room together, which may have initially, when you got in there, felt odd to be in a room of strangers, to be talking about a person that you found to be courageous, but something that you noticed, like you may have, like, you can respond to the question, like, I thought this, I felt this originally, I said this, I heard this. So what happened for you in the space that you want to call out? Yeah, and as we reflect on that, we're just like asking you to hold those things, hold those reflections, which is a really important part of the work that we do, to notice as you interrupt these cycles of conversing and you engage in dialogue in a different way. The shift that happens in us is essentially the shift that we should be able to see in the world. Um, if you want to raise a virtual or real hand, you can unmute. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a comfort right now in my life with being around new people, and I'm in a phase where I'm easily, and this is how I've always been, fascinated with other people's fascinations. But being in that space is one thing, but being with people where it feels genuine and authentic. That's why I made that comment in the chat. Every first conversation I have with people networking wise, it's like that, maybe in different framework. But I think the key takeaway was I could really work with Justina and Nima, and we could build something off of that, just from that genuine and authentic connection.
So this is the hot group. Go ahead, Justina.
Yeah, so of course, building on that and in full agreement with Jacob, there is one shift I noticed and one general, let's say, tendency I noticed. The shift in myself was from, because in Europe it's almost 6 p.m. where I am. So from like, oh, it's been a long day, to really energized. And I can really feel it in my body, like my legs are moving a little bit. And I also noticed that there was like zero need in this group for questioning like any element of someone's life story, like, but why, or this is weird, or no need for judgment. And I loved it. So thank you.
Does anybody from any other group want to share? No pressure.
I'll say something. This is Preeti, and I was with Mike and Ashley. We were in deep. I don't know. We were in deep, and so that I took note of that, because I think for me it was just a really interesting counterpoint between conversations. Sometimes when you meet people and you have the safe, sort of intro questions. And so I think we were able to really get to know a little bit about each other. And then the other piece, the other takeaway and realization I had in the conversation is how much even telling the briefest glimpses into our stories makes us feel so seen and visible. And just the power of our story to connect to our own humanity, you know, and externalizing this experience we're all having as humans, you know. So
I'll tell a brief story, and I agree with Preeti about our group. It was in deep, fast, and very powerful. My brief story is that friends and I were going to be getting together, and they said, look, there's an exercise. I want you to pick one word, and this is your theme for the year. You get one word. And then when we finally got together, we shared what our word was. And my wife's word was discipline. My friend's word was bold. Another was intentionality. Another was awake. Another was complete. My word for the year 2024 is courage. I want to be way more courageous than I am. And so when I saw this question, the first person that actually came to mind was my wife, but I decided to share about this guy named Jeff, whom I worked with. And but I want to be like Jeff. I want to be like my wife. I want to be more courageous. And I'm really working hard to do that in lots of different ways. So that's why I shared right now.
Thanks for sharing, Mike. Nima, I know you had your hand raised. We're running a little short on time. If you maybe can throw that in the chat, whatever perspective you were holding. But I just want to close this out and then hand it over to Shelley to close this out officially. But in a traditional Share America dialogue, we would have more questions that really get to the heart of the matter of the issues, whether it's around community safety or community policing or whatever tense subjects might be occurring in your communities and organizations. Even around Israel and Palestine, we've had Share America dialogues in our institutions and communities. And that's where this foundation we've established really comes in handy, because we're upholding the dignity of each other through that entire experience and process. And we're thinking back to the people in our lives that matter to us and to each other. And then finally, we would enter a space of ideation, because we want to make sure we're capturing the fireflies and the lightning bolts that come up in these environments or in this dialogue. And we would offer a prompt like, what ideas do you want to bring back to your community, or what are the conversations you want to have after this, or where do we go from here? We really make sure we capture those ideas so we can follow up on them with each other. But that's if we had 2 to 3 hours together. Unfortunately, we only have 7 minutes left. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Shelley, and she's going to bring us to a close.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Thank you so much, Janelle. Thank you, everyone who has been with us in the session. I'm so glad to hear that you had a great experience in the breakout. What I would like to do is to kind of help illustrate what this looks like, is actually share with you a video. And this will just take a couple minutes, and you'll see what this looks like in the different communities we've worked with, and hear from folks there. And before I play that, I'm going to just enter some info into the chat of where to get in touch with us, where to learn more, another PDF for the slides, the viewable PDF, so that you can take that with you. You know, we've been so encouraged over the last 2 years from all of the participants in these groups. And so if you imagine, you know, a next question that say, you know, what is at the heart of the matter for you when it comes to what a safe community looks like? What is at the heart of the matter when it comes, you know, to your political beliefs? And thinking about that question arc of what is that? How do you deepen those relationships and then really use that foundation to make change? So I love, Jacob, that like, great, we just bonded, now let's collaborate. And I think there's something special that happens when folks really connect authentically with people they might not have, you know, met otherwise. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen here and take you through this video to close this out.
Share America is not about changing anyone's mind, and it's not about finding common ground. The goal is to say, I now see you as a human, even though you see things differently than I do.
Some of the problems that we have in the United States, we don't understand each other.
We all read the horrible news every day, feeling like our country in many ways doesn't serve us anymore.
Community leaders saw this as an opportunity to bring together groups that just don't often connect. This is what Share Our America does. It provides the space for people to share their personal stories and unique experiences, to build new relationships and trust with one another, and sets the stage for communities to take action on what matters to them.
We brought people in who had already said, I want to engage with people who think differently than me. Our participants were in very personal situations.
As soon as they started to share tables with one another and started to get to know each other, you saw folks start to really open up.
Asking questions all designed to understand rather than to persuade.
I saw people coming out of their shells, and myself as well.
I was riveted by the opportunity from the very beginning.
Conversation is about questions, and conversation is about just opening yourself up to hearing what the other person has to say at the same time while you're saying what you need to say.
Over the last 2 years, we've seen participants open up in ways we never could have imagined, whether they gathered for a couple of sessions or just a few hours.
This process of our questioning really gave me a chance to build that trust.
I go into the event feeling nervous, and then there was so much vulnerability in that space, and I walked away feeling wonderful.
Our differences are not something to be feared. Somebody else is going through the same thing. We don't know all the answers, but together we can come up with an answer.
I think I know what my gifts and talents are and what I bring to the table, but it's so much more important that I understand what everybody else brings to the table.
I mean, I want to be uncomfortable. That's what keeps life worth living.
It's going to now be a ripple effect that goes into other communities.
Coming from so many different demographics and walks of life.
We're educating one another and being empathetic and bringing our resources together to meet the need.
I hope the initiative continues to grow, not just in our local area, but nationwide.
This is one small area, one small group, but that's all you need to make change.
In the coming years, we are taking what we've learned across the country so that thousands and millions can come together to listen, to share, and really move our world forward. We need everyone on board so more and more communities can learn to use their differences as a strength. And with that foundation, their potential to create change is limitless. We need collaborators, supporters, and more like you to take the initiative to the next step. Join us at shareouramerica.org. Thank you all so much. And thank you to the folks who also put additional resources into the chat. That's wonderful. Love Share Our Europe. Get in touch with us. You know, we work with some wonderful organizations who are doing some work, doing some kind of community mediation work as well right now in Europe. Yeah, the Weaver community, David Brooks. Yeah, great resources. We're connected with many of those. Thank you all so much. I know we're at time. Really deeply appreciate you for making this a part of your day and a part of your week. And thank you to Eva and the Catalyst team. Bye, everyone, and look forward to hearing from you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye, all.